Good morning, I'm Greg Krasovsky, and I want to talk to you today about legal services and business advisory services that my law offices offer for those doing business in or making investments in the former Soviet Union. This includes the Baltic states, all the members of the Commonwealth of Independent States, the CIS, including Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and other countries. If you're already engaged in business or you're contemplating doing business in the former Soviet Union, I'm sure you understand how important it is to have competent legal advice and also business consulting services to make sure that, number one, you don't lose your money. Number two, you're doing work effectively here. And number three, that your business activities and investments are protected by local laws and just by local connections, as they say. So anyway, let's just go down the list of some of the services and industries that myself and my colleagues where we can give you competent legal advice and other professional services, including investment banking, management consulting, just general business advisory services. Lots of different industries, whether it's energy sector, agriculture, heavy industry, light industry, metallurgy, excavation of precious metals, minerals, diamonds, all sorts of things. If you've already made investments into Russian companies, whether these are direct investments, whether you also started to participate in making investments in Russia's or other CIS or former Soviet countries' securities markets, make sure that you get a second opinion. Even if you think you already have competent legal advice today, trust me, it doesn't hurt. I've been doing work in Russia since 1993, and not just Russia, but also Ukraine and the Baltic states as well. So I know the landscape. My colleagues know the landscape. What's extremely important is to make sure that you have the services of someone who not only understands the laws of your home jurisdiction, or the way business is done, as they say in the West, including legal requirements, business traditions, good sound business practices, corporate governance, accounting standards, but also someone who understands these things as a professional within Russia. I remember when I started working in Russia, I was always amazed that major American and European corporations would obviously go to their big local law firms, when I mean local law firms in their jurisdictions, who had recently opened up offices in Russia. And you would meet the senior partners in these law firms, and they're all very competent lawyers in their home jurisdictions, but they weren't experts in Russian law. Back then, it was forgivable because Russian law or Ukrainian law or law in the other countries that were members of the former Soviet Union was just developing. But as we know, over 25 years have passed since the Soviet Union fell apart. And during this time period, legal systems have been formed, and you have to understand current laws. So it's extremely useful where you're dealing with a lawyer who's qualified as a lawyer, who has a legal education, both in your home jurisdiction and somewhere in the former Soviet Union, to make sure that he can help you navigate the current legal landscape, as well as the political landscape. This is why one of my areas of expertise is political law. And this isn't limited to giving legal advice to politicians or political parties or governments. What this has to do, it has to do with political risks and giving good legal advice to your clients, whether they're individuals, small businessmen, medium-sized businesses, or even large corporations, on political risks that they're going to have to deal with. How to mitigate those risks, and also how to work properly within the current political landscape. given the current politicians, the current political parties, and the way governments work. Aside from various industries in which we can offer you competent legal advice because we have experience in those industries, some which I've already mentioned before, we can also help you make sure that you negotiate a good contract, that your contractual rights are protected if you're just doing international business transactions in the former Soviet Union. Aside from services and contract law, if you're considering setting up a subsidiary, can help you with that, or hiring local workers, or hiring local contractors. And that's something we do pretty often. There are issues with American companies, European companies, and the way they work with Russian contractors or Ukrainian contractors. Recently, there's been a lot of work, for instance, with software programmers in the former Soviet Union, including Ukraine, Moldova, Russia, Belarus, who are providing very good work at a reasonable price to customers in Europe, in Asia, and in North and South America. And we're willing to represent either side. But since this particular FaceTime podcast, or whatever we'll call it, is primarily geared at our American audience, the American clients that my Washington, D.C. office has, let's just talk about what you have to do correctly as an American company or as an American businessman in your dealings with the former Soviet Union. We talked about political law recently. We also know that currently sanctions are in place. And these sanction lists seem to be expanding. There's no let-up because the political issues are not going to be resolved anytime soon. The U.S. and Russia and other countries are in direct competition over markets, resources. Basically, it's geopolitics. And we want to make sure it doesn't negatively affect your business. If you're an apolitically neutral businessman who simply wants to make money or expand your market share, get new customers, get new suppliers, then we're here to help you because we believe that business should be conducted separately from politics. But at the same time, you have to take that into account and protect your legal rights. If necessary, by being able to file suit in a local court, whether it's in the United States or in the course of the former Soviet Union, or seek dispute resolution in an alternative dispute resolution forum. We're talking about private arbitration. If necessary, protect your rights as an investor from a corporate governance point of view. If you've bought shares in a company, or you have shares in a fund, hedge fund, or a private equity fund, or other fund that's investing in the former Soviet Union, and you want to make sure you have a clear picture of what's happening, that you understand the fund's policy, the fund standards, that these funds are also not inadvertently violating various laws. As we know, if you're involved in financial markets, whether we like it or not, I don't see us being able to get rid of investment banking in the near foreseeable future. And people need to be protected from insider trading. So if you have those concerns, and as a former investment banker, I'll tell you, there is insider trading. It still takes place in the U.S. and in Russia and in other states of the former Soviet Union or other Eastern European countries. The best way to do that is to make sure you have competent legal representation in the event any red flags start to go up. Because you also need to have your rights protected. This has to do with corporate governance as well, because what often happens in companies where you have shareholders from various countries is sometimes the management, I'm not talking about managerial incompetence or managerial malfeasance for the sake of managers themselves, but what can happen is that the managers will be advocating the interests of one particular group of shareholders or one shareholder to the detriment of other shareholders. And that's unacceptable. So by representing you, we can certainly, if that's taking place or you suspect it's taking place, we can protect your rights and do everything that's necessary to put it to an end. And if you can't put it to an end, we may recommend that you're better off exiting this company or exiting this particular fund at a fair price. And sometimes we can secure that for you. Not sometimes, but often. Especially when the other shareholders realize that you've already exposed some wrongdoings and you just want to get out. Aside from international business transactions, investments in financial markets, people do direct investments in companies. And there's still good opportunities to invest directly in companies, especially startups in the former Soviet Union. There are a number of startups that have shown a lot of potential in IT, in the high-tech sector in general, as well as communications. So we're willing to help you do the due diligence to represent your rights as an investor, to properly structure a transaction, if necessary, help you with oversight over a company that you've put your money in. So those are some of the things we can help you do. Also, the basic rudimentary things like if you want to come here, making sure that you know how to properly apply for a business visa or tourist visa or work permit, that any foreign employees that you have here are properly documented and have proper work status, and we'll give them advice on those issues. In the event anyone is ever a victim of a crime, whether it's an economic crime or a crime of violence or other things, we'll certainly help you as a victim and make sure that we work effectively with local law enforcement, prosecutors, and courts to protect your rights. Or if you've been unjustly or unfairly accused of not just violations of, let's say, civil administrative laws, but criminal laws. And often those charges are leveled even against companies. For instance, violation of customs laws, which can lead to a charge of contraband. That's a crime. We can represent you. Or violation of currency control legislation that has to do with proper ways and having the proper basis to transfer money, to exchange currencies. As you understand, a number of Eastern European countries have very strict currency controls to prevent currency flight, also to prevent money laundering or tax evasion. So you need to be in compliance with all these things, and we can help you. Yes, we'll probably go over some other specific areas of industry and business next Facebook broadcast. In the meantime, listen, have a good week. Hope everyone enjoyed President's Day in the U.S. At least it was a federal holiday, so some people did have that day off. Take care.